Welcome to Renewed by Faith. Today we're looking at the book of Job, chapter 1. We're going to read and discuss chapter 1 and look at the psychological themes that are within this book and kind of explore what isn't necessarily commonly talked about in the book of Job. So let's get started. Chapter 1. In the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys, and had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. His sons used to hold feasts in their homes on their birthdays, and they would invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When a period of fasting had run its course, Job would make arrangements for them to be purified. Early in the morning, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking, "Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." This was Job's regular custom. One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." "Does Job fear God for nothing?" Satan replied. "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You've blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, everything he has is in your power. But on the man himself, do not lay a finger." Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. One day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabaeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, "The fire of God fell from heavens and burnt up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who's escaped to tell you." And while he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead, and I am the only one who escaped to tell you." At this, Job got up and tore his robe, shaved his head, and then he fell to the ground in worship and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. So let's take a look at what this is saying. So first of all, Job is a man, right, who lived in the city of Uz. We don't know much about the city of Uz. There is no historical information about it, and we don't know what time period, any of that. Okay, but Job was known to be a man that was blameless and upright, who feared God and shunned evil. What does blameless and upright mean? It means to have integrity, to be morally virtuous, right? So he was acting with integrity in his everyday life. Let's look at some of the ways that he is thought to be blameless and upright. It says he was the greatest man among all the people of the East. It said he had 10 children, and he would make arrangements for them to be purified. In the mornings, he would sacrifice a burnt offering for each of them, thinking in case they've sinned or cursed God in their heart. And that was said to be his regular custom. So regularly, he atoned for his children's possible sins, right? We don't even know if he's like, just in case they sinned and in case they cursed God, I'm gonna atone for them anyway, right? He loved God and feared God and tried to shun evil, right? He shunned evil. And then, so that's what we know about Job. Okay, that's really all it kind of says in the beginning. And then there's a scene where we kind of, you see, like, if you're thinking of a movie, camera pans over and we see the courts of heaven, right? We just see heaven and angels coming up to the Lord, and along comes Satan with them. Now we know from the book of Revelation that Satan was an angel who was cast out of heaven with his angels. And so this, is potentially from before he was cast out of heaven. And he comes and he says to God, or God says to him, where have you come from? And he says, I've been roaming the earth, back and forth upon the earth. And God says, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He's blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. I want you to pay attention to God saying he's blameless and upright. He fears God and shuns evil. It does not say that he's perfect, without defect, right? Not like Jesus, spotless lamb. It just says he's blameless and upright. He's a man of integrity. He's morally virtuous, right? He does good things. And then Satan says, does Job fear God for nothing? Satan says, he says, have you not put a hedge of protection around him? He says a hedge around him and his household and everything he has. You bless the work of his hands so that he's wealthy. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. So Satan's saying he's only like this because you've blessed him beyond measure. And so if you stop blessing him, if you take it all away, he's going to curse you to your face, is what Satan says. So the Lord says, very well then, I give you power, Satan, over it. Over everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. So God gives authority to Satan to destroy what Job has, everything but his person. And so Satan goes out from the presence of the Lord, and the first thing that happens is now Job's sons and daughters are having a feast, as they normally do, that says, and a messenger comes up to Job, and he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, the Sabaeans attacked and took off with your wealth, took off with your animals, and killed your servants. And then while he's talking a second, I think that they should make a movie about this book, by the way. I think it would be a really interesting story. Anyway, a second servant comes up, right? Or messenger comes up while the first servant is not done with his story. And he says, fire fell from heavens and burned up more of your animals and the servants, right? And put the servants to the sword. So now, again, wealth is gone, servants gone, and then a third came up and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword. Okay, it was the third guy. Again, said, servants to the sword. And so again, destruction. And then finally a fourth messenger comes and says, your sons and daughters were feasting, but a wind swept in from the desert, struck the 4 corners of the house falls on them, they're dead, and he's the only one that escaped. So these 4 messengers escaped, but everything else is gone. The servants, the wealth, the kids. And what is Job's response? His response is that he mourns, right? So a symbol for mourning in the Old Testament was to tear the clothes and shave the head. That showed that you were in mourning. Sometimes put on sackcloth, they would say. It doesn't say that he does that. It says that he tore his robe, shaved his head, fell to the ground in worship, worshiping the Lord. So he's not like Satan said. Satan said that he would curse God to his face. No, he gets down, he worships the Lord. He said, naked I came from my mother's womb. I can't say that. Naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord is taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. He praises God even though he's now been stripped of everything except for his health. Now stay tuned. The next video we'll talk about chapter 2. We're going to go one chapter per video, and I want you to just think about what God said here, what God called Job: blameless and upright, not perfect. And Job's response so far is to worship the Lord. And it says Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. So Job still doesn't sin in this instance. It says by charging God with wrongdoing. So not doing what Satan said he would do, not cursing God, right? So stay tuned, everybody. See you in the next video. Bye.